Bold, daring, unpredictable. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. with Robert Vaughn and David McCallum. Friday at 8:30, 7:30 Central Time on NBC.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
I just feel like your voice kind of comes from what you're absorbing. And certainly we've seen loads of people who just do a straight up imitation of the art styles that most affect them. And I don't see a real downside to that aside from when you start just outright swiping specific compositions. But if you really like the way a certain artist has built their work, see if that can lend an effect on you with the way you shape your art style. Why not? I mean, I'm still reflecting the influence from the artists that affected me 40 years ago, and I don't see any reason to stop.
If you're here at Word Balloon, it's because you like comics, creators, conversation, pop culture subjects. Would you consider joining the League of Word Balloon Listeners? Patreon.com/wordballoon. For just $3 a month or more, you'll get exclusive access to the Word Balloon e-magazine, featuring transcriptions of some of my best conversations. When you subscribe, you'll also be part of the Word Balloon Book Club, where Brian Michael Bendis and I will pick a comic every month to review and discuss live with the League on this show. Join the League today, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Happy to welcome back Paul Kupperberg, a guy I hung out with a lot in Connecticut back in August. Good to see you, man.
Nice to see you, too. How's it going?
Thanks for coming on. I enjoyed the wrap-up to Season 2 of Peacemaker.
Yeah, me too.
As I told you in my email, it took me 2 seasons to call him Peacemaker and not Peacekeeper.
That's right. I reminded you of that. Yes, it is Peacemaker. But yeah, no, it was exciting. You know, I didn't keep up with Checkmate post my run on it, so I didn't really read the Rucker run and the Bendis run either. So I'm watching this season, and I had no idea that all clues point to Checkmate. I thought that at the end, until the very end, when they were walking out the door of the new place, I thought, oh, it's going to be the PAX Institute, which is the organization I set up in the comic. But so when Checkmate came on, it was like, well, I'm surprised.
I doubt this will happen, but I just want to show the original house ad for Checkmate and that fantastic armor. Who designed this, Paul? Do you remember?
The armor was designed by John Byrne.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Well, although there is this version.
Of course. Here, I'm going to zoom in for that. Fantastic. That was the great, I think it was a CBS show with Sebastian Cabot there.
1962, I think. And it was
you can find a couple episodes of that on whatchamacall, on YouTube. I think I've seen them here and there. Yeah. So was Checkmate originally was it lifted from that CBS show?
No, not at all. That was I didn't remember it until I came across a reference later and realized I vaguely remembered it from reruns. I was still a little too young when it was on the air first run. But no, that was just I was when Vigilante ended, I was going to spin off these characters into a new group, into the spy organization. And I was looking really to pretty much do DC Shield. I was just looking for a gimmick to hook it on. So the chessboard seemed to be a good one to go with. I don't play. I know nothing about the game, but still, it seemed like a a good setup to work with.
Well, I would pay money for an action figure of, say, John in the Checkmate armor with his helmet up and sweating really hard or something like that.
Yeah, man. It was it was we got burned into. It was kind of like a publicity thing, John. He doesn't have any rights or anything to this. He just did this as as a one-off thing. But yeah, we wanted to kind of be able to tie his name to it to help with sales a little. But Steve Irwin really designed everything else in the book, all the all the new characters and the headquarters and everything. He did about I still have copies of it. He did about a dozen pages of sketches of the headquarters and the other characters and stuff. So it was really Steve Irwin's book to design.
Jason, also a big fan of your run, says always great to hear stories from Paul. Checkmate and Vigilante were two of his favorite comics of the 80s. Yeah, I agree. Because I know Vigilante started with Marv, but let's go back to Peacemaker and tell me, Paul, take me back to when DC acquired the character and how it wound up in your hands.
Picture this: Sicily, 19. No, it's. I'm sorry. I've been watching Golden Girls reruns. Yeah, DC acquired the rights to all the Charlton characters in the early 80s. What was it? 83, 84, something like that. The first concerted effort with the characters, I think, was Comic Cavalcade. Was going to be that was going to be a monthly comic with serialized adventures of all the Charlton characters, and for some reason Superman in there as well, I guess, to anchor with a familiar character. But yeah, I wrote originally for that a Captain Atom serial, like a 12-part thing in 6 and 4 page increments that Jose Delbo started drawing. But that fell apart. Other people worked on other stuff. I know Keith Giffen and Robert Loren Fleming did some Peacemaker stuff. And I think that may have been where the voices in the helmet originated. But I took it and added the whole Nazi father element, which is, something to be proud of.
Makes it more complicated.
Yeah. But yeah, so that those guys were just kind of floating around, and I don't remember. He had appeared in Crisis on Infinite Earths, like in one panel, and I don't think he had been anywhere else before I started using him in Checkmate. I don't think so.
So wait, so he was in Checkmate first before he was in his own book.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I didn't remember that. Please go on.
Yeah. Checkmate was where we brought him in, and then that spun. When we got a reaction to the character, I guess we tried the miniseries. Yeah, but
that's cool. Yeah.
Or I'm sure that's the way it worked. Yeah, he did all that stuff in yes, he did all that stuff in Vigilante, killing. Yeah. Sorry, it's hard to remember back that far.
I understand. Yeah, I know. I am pushing you, and I understand. but I really do appreciate. Again, Marv started Adrian Chase in Teen Titans.
Yes,
and was this kind of like if Daredevil were a judge, unsatisfied with the legal system, so he becomes vigilante to kind of right the wrongs he couldn't through the legal system and everything.
Right.
What do you think of the television version of Adrian Chase and Vigilante?
It wouldn't have been my first choice, but when you break it down, when I first started writing the Vigilante comic, it was kind of a superhero comic. It was a ground level superhero, and I quickly got away from that in the book because I could, and but once I started doing this and going with the character, I realized that this guy's nuts. It's like this isn't the action. These aren't the actions of a sane person. You're a judge. You don't like the way things are going in your courtroom, so you put on a mask and you use a gun to right the wrongs. Um, that's behavior that should be examined, don't you think? So and then once I realized that this guy was crazy and had been all along, because you don't do that unless you're nuts. At no point in human history, I've made this point numerous times before. At no point in human history, and I've researched it, and if you prove me wrong, that's fine. But nobody has ever put on a costume and gone out at night to fight crime, ever. I can't find a recorded instance of it ever happening. You know why? Because it's fucking stupid.
It is fucking stupid. But there have been some real people out there that have put costumes on in the last couple of years.
Yeah, but they've gone out kind of as a publicity stunt. It's been the what do you call it? The Angels in New York. Curtis Lewa,
Guardian Angels.
Yeah. Bernie Getz wasn't a hero. Bernie Getz wasn't a vigilante. He was a vigilante. But those are the cases. I mean, somebody doing a legitimate Batman has never happened and never could, because you wouldn't survive more than probably the first night. Once I had that in my head, it was like, all right, this guy's crazy. Everybody involved in this world is crazy. So I just went with it. So the fact that the vigilante of the TV show is a different sort of crazy, I guess it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
Stephen Commander says, good evening,
hey,
John
Stephen.
Paul. Love your proposal for a new Peacemaker, Rick Carter, Paul, as well as the one for Blackthorn.
Yes, I had I published these along with some other stuff, as a Kickstarter reward thing. But yeah, I had written. I wrote a follow-up a proposal for a follow-up series to the Peacemaker miniseries, and then I also wrote one for Blackthorn, who is a love interest I introduced in Vigilante for Adrian Chase in the later issues, and she also went on to appear in Checkmate. So
not to be confused with the '70s Rosenthorn, of
right.
course.
No connection. No.
Okay.
So yeah. So thank you, Stephen.
Jason also mentions that he didn't like the portrayals of either Vigilante or Peacemaker on HBO, though never thought either would end up on the screen, so maybe can't complain. Yeah, that was kind of my take, especially for Vigilante. I mean, I love that costume, and I love that look and everything about him. And at first I'm like, I don't like this goofy thing. But I got to say, after the second season, he's warmed up, to me.
Yeah. And like he said, it's like, oh my God, Peacemaker? Vigilante, these are the stars. These are the ones who were taking the lead. When I was growing up, it was, by 1975 or so, there had been, only a handful of superhero things. There had been, some pretty bad movie. Well, no, actually, they're not that bad. The movie serials, the Superman and the Batmans, they're kind of charming in their own way.
Sure.
There'd been that. There'd been the Spider-Man. No, there hadn't been the Spider-Man TV show yet either. I don't think so.
No, that was a couple years later.
Yeah. So there hadn't been much Adventures of Batman. There had been some animated stuff. So if there were going to be, Wonder Woman had been on already. So the headliners, sure. Headliners, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Those are Peacemaker. This third tier Charlton character that I wrote. Forget it. It's happening all over. I mean, once they even Iron Man, once they opened the door with Iron Man and found that, because he was not a top tier character at all. Once that opened the way, I guess it was figured like, well, it's not who it is, it's how it's done.
Have you had an opportunity to meet James Gunn yet?
No, no, I
No.
haven't. We've
He clearly must love a lot of the stuff you were working on, though, in the '80s to keep
he,
dipping back in.
he has said so on Twitter. I copied the tweets. But he has said up front that he had the Checkmate and Vigilante and the Janus directive storyline that I did with John Ostrander. He
I was
said
going to ask
those
about
were
that. Yes.
those were what he was going back to when he was writing the Suicide Squad movie, and and also mentioned Checkmate. In fact, he mentioned Checkmate in a tweet like 5 years ago. And it was like, like how much he liked it. Oh, somebody posted, if you could have any property in the DCU made into a TV show, what would it be? And I answered Checkmate, and I tagged Gunn on it, and he responded, "That's a thought." So, maybe it just took 4 or 5 years to gestate.
It is interesting watching him kind of assemble all the chess pieces on the board for his television and movie plans.
Yeah.
And I do like how they very quietly are dovetailing into each other, because I was really worried after seeing the first Superman movie. I'm glad that it's been fast tracked, and they're starting to shoot it next year or whatever, or whatever the plan is. But I'm like, are we gonna have to wait 5 years for Superman 2?
Right.
And what kind of breadcrumbs will we get? I know that the Supergirl movie is coming out next year, and we'll see who's in that beyond obviously Supergirl and Lobo. But yeah, I love that Nicholas Hoult was in Peacemaker season 2. I thought that was a great scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I like what he's doing. He's clearly got a plan, and he doesn't mind digging deep, going deep for these characters and these and concepts. It's refreshing. I mean, there was superhero movies are starting to look grim. They were starting to like, okay, I think we may have hit the peak, and it's now 1968 and westerns on TV again. Because when I was a kid growing up, that was all that was on TV was westerns and Beverly Hillbillies. But and then one day they were just kind of gone. They ran their course, and they went away. So I guess superhero movies will finally reach that. I mean, if you're doing that many of them, there's going to be some duds in there.
Well, you got to play with the genre beyond the basics, and
yeah,
But it's interesting because as you say, they were getting very gritty when you were developing Peacemaker and some of the other things. That was in that Watchmen, Dark Knight kind of period, right?
Yeah.
Of grim and gritty. Was there an editorial edict to make, like for instance, Peacemaker crazy? You say that in the Comics Cavalcade Giffen thing that they were already going down that road,
right? I kind of think, looking at the timing, that I was kind of on the cutting edge of the whole grim and gritty thing with Peacemaker. I mean, I don't think I'm not sure what was that 87.
Yeah.
So
86, 87 as far as Watchmen and Dark Knight and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's right in there with Dark Knight. I don't think I was influenced by it. But it seemed to be what the character was demanding, and nobody said stop. So
were you at all, given that he had the helmet, and actually maybe it's more of a, I wish I had asked Giffen this and known him back in the day. But Rogue Trooper, the British military character from 2000 AD, has that artificial intelligence in his helmet that he's constantly talking to as well. And I don't know if that was any sort of influence, or if you were aware of it even back then.
I was. I mean, I started reading 2000 AD way back. No, I actually, until you reminded me, I didn't remember that was a function of this, feature of the strip.
Understood. Tell me about that crossover with Suicide Squad and Checkmate and Peacemaker and everything.
Oh, yeah, the Janus Directive. Yeah, that was largely orchestrated by John Ostrander. He was kind of like, he built the big story and said, here's what, here's where we need to plug in these pieces. I mean, I was free to do my own stories in that context, but yeah, it was just this big, looking back, I see it was a bigger deal than I remembered. It wasn't just a few issues of the monthly. It was this whole, there was promotion for it, and DC even printed promotional material, little checklists and stuff like that. So so yeah, I mean, again, it was a while back, and it was it was in the long run, just like 3 or 4 issues of an ongoing series.
Yeah, man, it went like a year, or at least it had like 12 or so issues, in fact.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
count everything, Suicide Squad and Peacemaker and
Right.
Checkmate and everything. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So were you handling both the Checkmate and Peacemaker parts, or
Yeah, well, Peacemaker was involved in the Checkmate issues. Yeah, I don't. There weren't
I see.
separate Peacemaker issues, in the lineup.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that again, one of my favorite periods when Giordano really was the executive editor, if that was his title,
Right.
and no, all the checklist stuff and the meanwhile little things and those wonderful house ads like this one for Checkmate.
Yeah.
It got us excited when we saw
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, man. I remember I signed about 1,200 copies of the first issue for a subscription giveaway. Yeah, it was. I found I found the royalty statements from those olden days and some old tax returns, and you know, like 225,000 copies of the first issue.
Wow.
I mean, and it wasn't even a particularly like big seller for DC at the moment. At the time, I guess, but otherwise they would have made a bigger deal out of it. I don't know. Uh, but no, I'm kidding. It's so yeah, it was a very different marketplace. I mean, you know,
No,
you could,
absolutely it
you could
was.
rule the world with those numbers now.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. No, you'd be one of the top selling books right now if you had those kind of numbers. And it was run of the mill, as you said back then. Well, that was still the newsstand and direct market era where they were
Right.
still hand in hand.
Yeah.
So, no, I can appreciate all that. And I was surprised. I had forgotten that actually Peacemaker ran for, or rather, Checkmate ran for a few years, didn't it?
Yeah, it ran for I think 33 issues. So, not a bad run.
Yeah.
Yeah. About average for my stuff.
Are there plans of collecting
I don't know. I hope so.
Okay.
I would think that this would be an opportunity to do so. I'm always happy to work with those guys. I occasionally write introductions, and stuff for collections that they
Yeah.
do, because everybody else who remembers that stuff is dead, and 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 I've also I am a pack rat. Well, I'm a recovering pack rat because I've been getting rid of a lot of stuff. And just had the Columbia University here to look at my papers to see if they want to take them. So yeah, just getting rid of them.
Does it look good? Are
Oh
they
yeah,
going to take them?
yeah. They're
Yeah,
going
that's
there.
great,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So but I find things. The head of the library at DC got in touch with me recently and said, "Hey, I saw on Facebook that you have some unpublished Sugar and Spike pages by Sheldon Mayer." And I did. I had about 110 pages that I just Xeroxed, the stats when I was on staff, and just now I don't have the paper anymore. I scanned them, but they're looking down the line. They're obviously planning something with Sugar and Spike, so they wanted everything that they could find. So I supplied that to them, and there's other stuff I've sent them. The unpublished Supergirl and Superboy stuff from the 1980s. Prior to when I was writing Supergirl and Superboy, those individual titles were canceled, and we were going to bring it back in a book called DC Double Comics, and it was going to be a rotating Supergirl and Superboy rotating a 24-page lead feature and a 16-page backup. So they'd share the book. And I wrote the scripts for the first 2 issues. Carmen Infantino penciled the Superboy story, and Eduardo Barreto penciled the Supergirl story, and they were both lettered. And then somebody said, no, Crisis is coming. Forget it.
Wow.
So I have that. I've had copies of that stuff forever. So, they got in touch and said, look, if we ever going to, it sounds like maybe there'll be some of that pre-Crisis stuff getting reprinted, in which case they wanted to be able to include that. So we'll see. But I'm glad they have it. Maybe one day it'll see print.
Here's hoping. Mentioning Sugar and Spike, something I've rarely talked about, but I really do appreciate the history there, because long after the American appeal of Sugar and Spike, wasn't E. Nelson Bridwell? Was he the guy that was writing Sugar and Spike, or who was the great? Or no, was it Shelley? Was it Shelley?
It was Shelley Mayer. Yeah,
Shelley Mayer. Pardon me. Thank you.
Yeah, he wrote and drew all of them. Part of it was the European, the European market was still taking the material, but somebody has recently suggested to me that perhaps nobody wanted to say no to Shelley, so they just let him keep creating new material. Like they weren't going to say stop to him, so they just like, all right, we'll eat it. It's fine.
Wow.
I almost hope that's the case.
Yeah, no kidding. Find a company doing that today. Good Lord. My God. Yeah. And they're great. They're beautiful for what they are. They're little kid fun comics. They're, Nancy and Sluggo kind of things with better art, frankly.
If Waterston didn't grow up reading Sugar and Spike, I'd be amazed. I don't know if he's ever referenced it, or if he's ever given an interview, come to think of it.
I don't know. Yeah, really.
But yeah, it's a beautiful strip. I mean, it's just so clever and so charming, and so beautifully written and drawn. I mean, he was, for people who don't know who Sheldon Mayer was, he was one of DC's first editors. He was like 17 years old. He was editing the DC line. He was the guy who said, "Hey, check this out. Maybe we want to publish it." And that was Superman. Siegel and Schuster's Superman. He was, he also did he did a lot of stuff, but he did a strip called Scribbly Boy Cartoonist, which was autobiographical, but over the top, a humor strip. But it was about this kid who just wanted to be a boy cartoon. In fact, Red Tornado, Ma Hunkel, was introduced in the Scribbly strip.
I didn't know that.
Yes, wow. The original Red Tornado was Ma Hunkel, who ran the boarding house Scribbly lived in. She put a bucket on her head and red overalls, and she pretended to be the superhero, the Red Tornado. So,
I love. No, I was going to just say that I love that they took that fun Golden Age humor story and they really kind of like suddenly made her like, no, actually, she was kind of a Rosie the Riveter, the way they've rebooted her.
Well,
her backstory, and really made her kind of the the I don't even know the right word, but like especially during the Johns and James Robinson JSA years, that like she was like the house mother of the JSA. And that like kind of was a mentor to the younger female heroes and stuff. And it's like, no, don't mess with Ma Hunkel. Actually, she's pretty tough, which is great.
Yeah. But nothing ever dies in comic books. It's
Well, and now that you say that, I can totally see the similarities of the few Scribbly things I've seen and also the few original Red Tornado stuff. So yeah, I can totally see Shelley Mayer's art. Yeah.
No, it's worth looking up this stuff. I mean, it's all online. There are these sites that publish that print the old comics, and I have no trouble reading 50-year-old comic or 60 or 70-year-old comic books online. I don't feel like I'm taking money out of anybody's pocket. But so you can find all that stuff. I think it was in All American Comics the strip ran. I don't remember offhand, but
Probably.
yeah. So but it's well worth looking for and just reading a few. They're wonderful strips.
Did you ever know the filler or the background information of some of the filler stuff we used to get, like the Hobby Corner one-page thing or Super Turtle, some of those other kind of one-page, strips that were inside those books and everything from the Silver Age?
Yeah, I think that they were just there as filler, along with text. Well, you needed the text pages to meet the postal regulations, but I think the text page, the comic strips and the cartoons of Super Turtle and Cap's Hobby Corner and all that.
Yeah,
most of them done by Murray Boltinoff's brother Henry.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's why I talked to you, Paul, to find this stuff out, man. Absolutely.
But I think they were just there as filler in case, it's like, well, we didn't sell that ad. Let's, you always have a Super Turtle to slip in there. Yeah. What got me was, DC, everybody is always pulling out these public service announcements that DC ran in the 50s. Everybody's your neighbor. Treat everybody equally. Don't make fun of the black kids. Don't. And it's like, they were beautifully done, and they were, Jack Schiff and Win Mortimer and nice art and all that. And you read them, and then you go, and yet I defy you to find a black person in any DC Comics story in the last 2 years. Right?
Currently, you're saying? Or
no, I meant back then.
Yeah, back then. Yeah,
back
you're right.
Yeah, it was like, they're running these public service ads. What would have been more effective is including a black figure in the stories who wasn't like, Ebony.
100%. No, you're right about that, Paul. And shame on me for never really thinking about that. Because on the one hand, those public service messages certainly do seem forward thinking, especially in today's environment.
Sure.
But yeah, you're right about that. Yet, ironically, well, again, it was probably that same unfortunate barrier of, we don't know if this will sell in the South if we have, a black hero or whatever.
Listen, the Captain America, the first Avenger, they're in World War II, but they can't fight Nazis because that'll fuck up the German market.
Yes.
This is where we're at. Well, we don't want to offend the Nazis.
I would.
Well, we are there, aren't we? Yeah.
I would assume that the reason why Ben Kingsley was the Mandarin in the Iron Man movie was to not upset the Chinese audience, obviously.
Or just pick another villain. I don't know. Call me crazy.
Well, and I kind of like the idea of the way they projected the Mandarin in the movie, in that, it's just kind of a guise and not really, the criminal mastermind. So I kind of appreciated some of that, but yeah, I don't know. I feel there's a fear of doing, a derogatory depiction of an Asian character with the Mandarin,
and there should be
why it's off limits now.
Yes.
But again, this is middle-aged white guy saying this, senior citizen white. Who am I kidding? I've entered the senior ranks with my latest birthday. But that said, I'm just like, well, there can be. Like I always felt Fu Manchu, despite of all its problematics as far as the way it was written, 180 years ago.
Yeah.
But that said, he's basically a Chinese Moriarty, and it's like, I don't know, criminal mastermind that happens to be Chinese. I think that's kind of interesting.
That's fine, but it's like Charlie. If you've ever read the Charlie Chan novels, Charlie is the smartest guy in the room, always. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's putting this on for the white people. He's a very intelligent man. But these days you don't want to see that played out that way. He shouldn't. Why is he hiding? Why did he have to? Well, why did he have to hide? Because he was an Asian, who was looked down upon. and he didn't want to make the white people, insecure.
Have you read Pornsak Pichetsho's The Good Asian that takes place in 30s San Francisco and is about a Chinese detective kind of, fight,
Oh no.
really, I always give it up to Pornsak, and I also give it up to Ron V for taking a lot of old pulpy tropes
Yeah.
and modernizing them and really giving these heroes the credibility and the agency they deserve, and they don't have to play, and they can be. And in the case of Ram, setting stories in, like, the even the 19th century, my favorite vampire story that he did, These Savage Shores, where the British vampire goes to Mumbai thinking, oh, I'm gonna have a field day with all these,
Right.
natives, and gets his ass handed to him, because it's like, yeah, guess what? The natives actually are pretty smart people, and they have their own code, and
Yeah.
you don't know what you're walking into, pal.
I've been working on this graphic novel about it's the history of medicine. It's for writing for Mad Cave, and I'm doing this YA graphic novel for them. And you expect you're going to go back in history and look at medicine, and you're going to find a lot of grunting and hacking arms off with axes, and you find that relatively, a long time ago, there was some sophisticated shit going on. Like, even though these were people, people didn't actually live in caves, but even though they were cavemen, they were doing brain surgery successfully. Trepanning, drilling holes in the head to
Oh,
relieve
sure.
and stuff like that. They find lots of trepan skulls, and many of them have healed, and some have even more than one healed, which means they successfully did this. The patient lived. So there's all kinds of stuff going on back then. It's like, all right, so all this stuff, our image of these things is totally off. It's totally, the primitive was not as primitive as we thought. And I think we're stuck with those stereotypes. The India and Asia, and all the societies there. And you realize that all of our perceptions are these racist stereotypes. And so look, it's easy to look back now and take and take exception with it. You have to put you have to put things in perspective, of their time and their place. Yes, we can look back and judge how people acted 100 years ago, but that's how they acted 100 years ago. It wasn't like this is an exception to the rule. That was the rule. It wasn't a good rule, but that's the way it was. And I think we have to come to learn to accept that, the good with the bad. And now I'm rambling and I'm lost. Did I actually make a point there?
I appreciate what you're saying.
Was there actually a point in there?
No, there was a point in it. You made your point, man. Absolutely. No, I'm also wondering, as we get closer. My God, it was this year that Popeye made it in public domain, Mickey Mouse now in public domain, the original depictions and stuff. And I realize, we're about 8 or 9 years away from Superman and Batman with that situation. Wonder Woman, Captain America, those things will be followed, in natural order after that. Have there been any public domain heroes that already are in the public domain? I'm thinking of the Nader and the Fiction House heroes, some of those others that, weren't, the copyright wasn't maintained. Do any of those heroes intrigue you at all to ever go and try and do something new with some of these ideas?
I guess, no, not really. It's like, why not just do something new? Like, if I'm going to revamp a character, especially if a character has fallen into the public domain, there's a reason for it. Nobody is, it doesn't have value. Nobody has kept it. I see a lot. Look, I tried it myself. Mortod and Roger McKenzie and I did the Charlton Neo comics, and we revised a few of the old Charlton stuff, the PD characters, and it went nowhere. And you see other people, you see people doing the Dell characters and the Nader characters and the whatever, and it looks like they're having fun, and maybe they're selling a few copies, but what's the difference between that and coming up with something new that you don't have to worry about? Oh, this other guy can also publish, the blue schnozzle because it's PD.
I just wondered if some of the designs. I mean, it's funny. I've been looking at both the original designs and like stuff that Alice Ross did
Mhm.
in about 15 years ago when he was doing Project Superpowers and bringing back a lot of characters. I mean, I'm always a sucker for those original Golden Age costume designs.
Yeah, I love them. I love them. I mean, they're fun. They're goofy. They're everything that superhero costume should be.
Yeah.
In the last year or so, it's been a lot of civilians going on about Superman's underwear and shit like that, and it's like, all right, once again, you have no context. So you're talking out of your ass because you have no context.
Yeah.
Um, and that's fans too. I mean, there's fans think they know how the business works, and they think they know what goes on behind the scenes, and they think they know the reason for these things, and they're invariably wrong. It's like that's not why. Did that happen because this guy was trying to, they were looking to screw this guy over, or they did that? No, it wasn't selling, so they canceled it. That's the way it works. No, publishers don't cut off their nose to spite their faces. They,
I'm hip.
so yeah, yeah.
I'm Caesar of Rome says Peter Cannon Thunderbolt is in the public domain. Is that right? I always thought there had to be a special deal. Was that Joe Gill? I forget who created Thunderbolt.
It was no, Peter Cannon Thunderbolt was Pete Morisi.
That's right, Pete Morisi, of course, Pam, as he would sign his work.
Yes, and a fine.
I don't know about that, Caesar. I don't think Cannon is in the public domain because again, it seemed like they had to whenever it was used that you'd almost see kind of in the same way they give the Wonder Woman credit to Marston and Siegel and Schuster with Superman, that they would give Morisi the credit for.
And also,
Peter.
I mean, well, what's the term for the length of a copy of the first copyright? I mean, this stuff was published. Thunderbolt was published in what, 65? So it hasn't been the 79 years or whatever. So I think the Magic 8-Ball says no.
Yeah, I agree with you, bud. And also Caesar wanted to know. I know you only wrote one issue with her, but can you tell me about the creation of Dorothy Spinner? Tell me about Dorothy Spinner. I don't know. That name doesn't ring a bell with me.
She was in Doom Patrol. I introduced her later on in my run of the Doom Patrol. The only thing I really remember about her creation was they were in Kansas, so I named her Dorothy, and Spinner after the tornado.
Did she have wind powers or whatever? Or
what, you know what? I don't remember.
All right.
I never really got to get into the character because I think I introduced her in maybe like number 13 or 14, and I was out by number 18. So
okay. That's too bad. Listen, I do love.
I've been doing this for 50 years. I've written about 1,400 stories. I'm lucky I remember my name on a good day.
That's truly, Paul. I feel like sometimes I don't mean to tax you with some of these questions.
Oh no, it's okay.
All right.
It's good. It's good to keep me on my toes. Makes me keep thinking.
He's not that old, everybody. Don't worry about it. But also, no, I really do love that just by happenstance, because this is well before James Gunn, and I know it was very briefly in the Doom Patrol TV series. But really, between that and Peacemaker and everything, Vigilante, and now Checkmate, it's kind of great, Paul, that they really are kind of touching a lot of toys that if you didn't create them, you certainly put your spin on them. I'm
gratified. I mean, I even feel a connection with the Supergirl series, because it was kind of like, one or two of my little secondary characters made it in there, and just I always felt I only worked on the character for like 2 or 3 years, but I still always felt the connection to her. So yeah, no, it's great. I love it. I kind of sit there with an idiot grin on my face watching you know this guy who these characters I wrote on the screen, and again thinking it's like, really, Peacemaker, Checkmate, wow, you know. Hey, I got Tachyon. That's even more obscure, and I created that one.
Tachyon, indeed, absolutely, man.
Or
Frank has
Ariel.
a couple comments regarding Dorothy Spinner. She says she was not introduced with powers. She got her powers through Invasion. And Frank also says that Doom Patrol 14 was the Spinner debut, part 2 of a Power Girl guest appearance in Doom Patrol.
Well,
Wow.
thank you. I now that you say it, yes, I remember the cover, the Power Girl on the Doom Patrol cover. Oh, that's right, because I had done a Doom Patrol Supergirl crossover, so I guess I was just trying to like post crisis it up a little.
Art T Bear, speaking of Doom Patrol watching, and says
Hey,
Paul
Art.
rocks. Good to see Art. How you doing, Art? And Art
Yeah, how you
gifted
doing?
me with a lovely Doom Patrol page years ago
Oh,
that I
cool.
still have
Yeah.
on my wall. So I thank you, Art, for that. Yeah, that's no, it's great, Paul. And again, I mean, this was I was buying these comics back then, and I love the fact that again, Gunn kind of sees value in this stuff, and it is always interesting because obviously when the CW was doing their TV shows and Jeff Johns was so involved with them that JLA Detroit kind of finally got some love with
Right.
bringing Vibe back and Gypsy and some of these other characters and stuff that it's like, man, I remember reading these and going, I don't know who the hell these people are, and I miss the real Justice League. Where the hell's the real Justice League?
That's right. That's
You
what
know.
Chuck Patton said. But yeah. It is great. I mean, there's it, but it's such a rich history. I mean, I when I was on staff at DC, which I was through 2006. I was in many departments at DC. I started in special projects, then I was in DCU, then I was in licensing, and then I was in uh, special projects, and then I was in licensed publishing. So I went through every department in that place, and in one of those positions, one of my tasks was to create the media handbook, the book of all the properties catalog. So I was supposed to go through and make a page for every single character that DC had ever published, along with history, a little history, background, personal data, and illustration, and put that all. So um, I did. I wrote several hundred. I freelanced out several hundred more to people, and I hadn't even scratched the surface when I handed it off to somebody else. So we did hundreds of entries, thousands of entries, and it kept going. So there's so many characters available, as Gunn proved with Polka Dot Man.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
All
I
right.
do
You
know
want
that.
you want to go deep? We'll go deep.
Well, and again, thank God because Gunn used him in the second Suicide Squad movie, and it was great to see Polka Dot Man. So I'm
Please,
cool with that.
when is it not? So
Did
I think
have you looked? I was going to
I
ask, have you looked at what Mark's doing with the new History of the DC Universe books that he's been putting out?
I
Mark
haven't
Wade?
gotten to them yet. I'm going to wait until they're all out and just give it one swell foop. But uh, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Although I'm pretty sure I'm going to get about halfway into the first one and go, all right, I don't even know what the hell they're talking about anymore. So, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
No. A couple comments from the Peanut Gallery. Jet City Comics says, "Hey Paul, just wanted to say thank you for making life a little better through your comic stories. Read many stories from you and enjoyed them, which is
Thank you.
nice." And then Frank wants to know why a specific. He goes, "I love the Doom Patrol omnibus that DC put out for your run back in 2019. He wonders why the Rick Stanzi story never was put in the series. Do you know about that?
Yes, I do. That was done as a there was a push at one point to have backup stories created for all the titles because everything was so late. So they wanted to have backup stories in the drawer that they could slip in. And I wrote a few for Julie Schwartz. Post Crisis was one of he did a lot of those. He edited a bunch of those. So I wrote a few of them for him. I did a Green Lantern one. I did the Doom Patrol one, and actually Rick penciled both of them. So yeah, it was never intended to be a part of the series. It was just supposed to sit in a drawer and wait for an emergency.
But you don't know why it wasn't collected in the omnibus at all?
It was. He wanted to know why
I
it
see.
wasn't
Yes,
part of
it's in the omnibus, but it wasn't in the series. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
in fact,
Okay.
Rick had to recreate a bunch of pages from the story. He had most of them, but he had to recreate a few of them
Wow.
for publication. Yeah, and I still had the script and the outline. So yeah,
Paul, thank God you were a pack rat, truly, because again, I think back to your videotape of Julie Schwartz doing the Superman presentation and really kind of documenting a lot of the early DC and national people that were there at the creation of Superman. Thank God you had that thing around, because truly, man, I'm sure you and I have talked about it, and I'm talking about with other creators as well, that a lot of times, the rumor gets more history than the real history.
Oh, sure.
And so we need guys like you out there that understand that. I mean, that's why Jerry Robinson was such a valuable asset when he was doing things for the DC archives and writing his forwards and like, no, I was there, back. I mean, and that's the thing. And if the times you weren't there, you knew the people that were there. And again, thankfully with your,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I do the interview books and I did my my comic book memoir. Just like get them out there, get the stories out there. It's I have just enough of an ego to think people give a shit. So.
Well, they do, and also thank you for writing the Direct Current and other interview books that you have put out in the last few years. Do you have a new one on the way?
I'm working on it. I've got about half the interviews done. I got to get back in the saddle and do more. But I've been talking to. I need to be doing more. So yeah.
That's great, man, and truly, I appreciate that. And again, they're valuable resources, and I'm so glad. And they're part of the inspiration for what I'm working on with my interviews and everything. And,
no, that's great. I mean, this stuff, it's all there online and, all those things, but one electromagnetic pulse and this is all history. Give us print, you need that backup.
Yeah, you're right about that. I agree with that. As far as physical media goes, 100%. That is absolutely true. I'm also glad that do you have other stories? I'm glad we're mentioning some of the stuff that you've written in the last few years. Now you wrote that Ragnarok JSA story and were able to put that out as a novel. Are there any other stories like that we might see from you from a fictional standpoint with as far as a novel?
I don't have any other
material,
any other unpublished novels laying around, unfortunately, because that's a lot quicker than writing them from start. But no, I wish. I've got a lot of I got a lot of fragments and bits and pieces of things that I start and play with, and always put aside for like paying work. But but one of these days, there's a couple of things that I'd like to finish. I don't know if anybody wants to read them, but I'd like to finish them. So
well, you also participate occasionally with your buddies as part of the Crazy Eights writing group, Mike Jan Friedman and Robert Greenberger.
There's there were 10 of us, so we just lost Peter David, who was part of the group. But yeah, Crazy Eight Press, we're a publishing hub. We all publish our own books, our own way without editorial interference, but we kind of use the power. We kind of there's 10 people are louder than one. So we try to use it to help promote ourselves and each other. But yeah, I publish through them. I usually do a book or two a year. The next one will be the next book of interviews. But yeah, and otherwise I've been getting some work from Mad Cave lately, and that's been keeping me profitably busy, which is a good thing.
I'm really glad that Mad Cave is tapping you, Paul, because again, no, you're a great writer, and it's good that
Thank
they are using you. So beyond this history of medicine, are you doing any of the licensed books that they have?
No, not yet. I've been doing this is the third one I've done for them. Third graphic novel. Again, it's all been YA nonfiction stuff, but I got to pitch in for a new a new series for kid stuff. So we'll see.
Any interest in Flash Gordon or some of the King Feature stuff that they're currently
Oh, sure.
publishing?
I'd love to do that stuff. Yeah, I love those characters. I don't know what's available. I don't think. Well, I'm working with Adam Olenta. He's my editor on these things. I don't think Adam works on those properties,
Okay.
but whatever. I mean, yeah, it's something to look into. I mean, I've certainly been following them. I certainly know them. People always you get a lot of where do you get your ideas? It's like, well, that's my job. It's I need ideas. If I don't have them, I don't get paid, and then I have to live on the street, and that's not fun. So, but these characters, people come to you, you want to write so and so. It's like, hell yeah, and some of them you kind of have to research. Other ones you just walk into. And so, when I started writing Archie, it was like, I know these guys. I've been reading them my entire life, and I know exactly who the characters are and what their motivations are. And it was like the easiest thing I've ever done, the easiest. But, just about any superhero or classic, comic strip, yeah, I'm ready. Just,
No, I
just
get it.
fill me in on the last 10 years in case there's something new I need to know. But yeah, I'm there. I'm ready.
I'm really glad you mentioned your Archie run, because that's a fantastic run. What were those called? Because it was kind of the adult. What if Archie got married to Betty, and if he got married to Veronica?
Yeah,
Run.
the book it was called Archie. It was the married Archie the Married Life. It was what was it? Yeah, it was the Married Life. Wasn't it called the Married Life?
Something like
Sure,
that. Yeah, I couldn't
that
remember.
sounds about right.
Close
But
enough.
yes, so it was split into two features. One in a world where he married Betty, the other where he married Veronica. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was one of my. I
And
think
then,
that was one of the best things I've ever done.
Paul, I was so delighted when it came out, and it's like, I mean, I grew up on. There we go. Frank remembers Life with Archie.
Life with Archie. That was it. Thank you,
There
Frank.
you go. And yeah, it was great. And again, someone that grew up also reading Archie comics, it was so fun reading them as adults and just the soap opera ideas that you put together. I highly recommend them if anyone is listening and has not read Paul's Life with Archie stories. Worth it. But also collaborating with you, another departed superhero, great Norm Brayfogle.
Yeah. Norm did the first first bunch. I forget exactly how many issues.
Pretty
And in fact,
significant run, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was great. I mean, it's so weird. It's like Norm from Batman, and suddenly he's doing this kind of, he's doing Archie, but it's still Norm, and it's still Archie. Like, wow, that's that was something. It was really nice stuff.
And also it was, kind of inspired by Stan Goldberg and Dan DiCarlo in that, but
It
it
was in
really
the
was his
school
own
of, yeah,
style.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky. I got to work with some another artist we lost on the book was Pat. Jesus, I'm sorry, Pat and Tim Kennedy, the brothers who came on the book later. One of them passed away.
I'm sorry.
It was Pat, I believe. So yeah, amazingly talented artists. These guys, they worked with us a lot on, with me a lot on the Charlton Neo comics, and anything I gave them to draw, and they would draw anything I gave them. They were so great. But it could be funny animal, it could be science fiction, it could be mystery. They just drew it a different style. Like each story found its own style. Even if it was, they did a couple of romance stories that I wrote, but each one had its own, its own take on the subject. They were great artists. I'd love to work with Tim again.
That's cool. Pete chimes in and says his wife enjoyed Life with Archie. Glad anytime I can get her excited to go to the comic shop with me.
Yeah.
I know I would show it to other friends who had fallen out of the habit of comic book buying. And I'm like, you got to read Life with Archie. And they're like, oh my God, wait a minute. Miss Grundy is dying of cancer and Mr. Weatherby professes her love to her. And they have a nice romance before she dies.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. No, and Cheryl Blossom, you gave her the big C, unfortunately.
I when we started the project, they said, we just go for it, and whatever I came up with, they went, sure, do it.
Well, yeah, man. No, I Pellerito and John Goldberg over there and everything. I really appreciated the directions they allowed you guys to go into with Life with Archie. My
editor there was Victor Gorlick.
Of course, the grand old man of Archie, absolutely,
the great Victor Gorlick. He was he had been with that company something like 67 years or something when he passed, and he was still working. So I miss Victor. He was.
I had the pleasure, and I'm like, Victor, tell me everything about that year in '69 when Sugar came out. And was such a great thing for the comic and literally the song of the year. And it's just kind of crazy that the Archies in 1969 at the height of the hippie movement and everything else, this little bebop little Sugar.
I gotta tell you go back, the Archies were not bad to begin with.
Yeah.
And Sugar is a good song. Do you know who's covered that song?
I don't. Tell me.
I mean, Sam Cooke covered it. What's his name? Reggae guy. Marley covered it.
Marley. Wow.
Yeah, there are people who are still covering it. It's a really good song.
Well, and Ron Dante was a really talented singer. And doing all the parts and everything, or at least doing all the male parts.
Right. No, I mean, at the time, we were all like, "Oh, the Archies, what that bubblegum crap," But
we've covered this before, but Frank wants to know regarding Vigilante, how did DC take your idea of how you ended the book with Adrian Chase killing himself?
I don't remember any pushback. As I recall, it was kind of like, we came up with we knew the book had to end. We knew the Adrian had become irredeemable. He had as soon as he shot that cop in whatever it was, number 36, he's pretty much doomed. He can't. So we knew he had to die, but him getting shot is just like, okay, so he got taken out. That doesn't say anything. Realizing the monster he'd become, and fixing it himself, that's a powerful statement. And it was followed up in the letter column with a whole thing about Mike Gold, who was the editor, had a lot of experience with the National Runaway Switchboard and the suicide hotline and stuff. So there was a lot of coverage of that in the text page. But I stand by the story, and I think the story stands up. So
it was a great story, and man, what a shocking cover as well of Vigilante kind of facing himself in a mirror image, obviously with the gun in his hand.
Yeah,
so
by Ken Stacy.
Remind me, because there was for a moment in the book there was another guy who was trying to be a hero as Vigilante, and I forget his name, the
There were
character.
two other people who put on the uniform, who put on the costume. One was Alan Wells, was another. I forget if he was a DA or a judge, another judge, and then there was Dave Winston, who was Adrian's bailiff, who picked it up when Adrian dropped it, and they both died.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was, of course, part of Adrian's curse.
So was that an attempt to freshen up the book with a different protagonist, or were you always like, oh no, Adrian will come
Adrian's
back?
coming back. It's always, no matter who puts on the costume, Adrian's coming back. It's his book. Back in those days, you didn't easily replace characters like that.
Sure.
So yeah, no, that was always meant. Same when we did the Diodato run on Wonder Woman. There was never a question that Diana was coming back and Artemis was going to be out. So it was the same thing in Vigilante.
Okay, because I was, and also you could point to the various times Steve Rogers wasn't Captain America, especially in the 70s and 80s.
If you look in the comic book writer's manual, it's gimmick number 14B. So put somebody else in the costume.
I love it. I love it. Well, seriously, man, I am thrilled that I hope that the awareness of Peacemaker is leading people to your old stories. Again, there is a recent enough collection of Paul's Peacemaker stuff and Doom Patrol stuff as well. And again, maybe we'll see some Vigilante stuff.
Yeah, they did a DC's finest of the Peacemaker stuff, mine and the original Charlton stuff and the stuff that's followed it. So so it's it's very complete.
Yeah, Jason even says he'd love to see a Checkmate collection in the DC finest material. That would be great.
You and me both, brother.
Indeed. And so do you have a name for the next interview book?
No, I'm trying to come up with one. I may have to ditch the direct thing, but we'll see.
Yeah. And people can order your books obviously through Amazon, but also at your website.
Yep, they can order them direct from me. Get them signed from at paulkupperberg.net or Amazon, and finer dumpsters near you. I don't know.
And also, I've been impressed with how many stories of yours are available Kindle wise as well. So if people really want to reach back and read the Checkmate run,
oh sure,
they're all there. And I haven't looked if Vigilante, because of its subject matter, is kind of dicey or not as far as for them to offer it now, because I don't know if they can make that book today, Paul.
Well, I was surprised when they, I never thought Peacemaker would get reprinted, because if you look at that thing, it's pretty politically incorrect. It's cuckoo nuts. It's Middle Eastern Arab terrorists and Dr. Sin Sin, the evil Asian villain. Again, 1987, different day, but
different time.
I didn't think it would ever make it. The fact that it's buried now, 4 issues buried between 20 other comic books, maybe makes it a little easier to take. But sure. not something you want to show somebody over their cup of kombucha or something.
Frank says that all the Vigilante and Checkmate material is in the DC Universe app as well. All right. I appreciate that, Frank.
Yes, I get these massive royalty statements, with 10, 12 pages long, and there's like one item that's got a big number on it, and the rest is just 12 pages of 4 cents, 3 cents, 8 cents. The Checkmate, Vigilante, Arion. I mean, it all adds up, and happy to have it, but. So yes, they're all on there.
I meant to mention Arion earlier, one of your great Bronze Age creations. And is your Arion novel, is that also available at your website? Did you write a novel about Arion?
Oh no. I wrote a couple of short stories that were Arion-ish, but they're not currently available. They need to be looked at and spanked and and made to behave themselves a little better. But yes,
Okay.
one of these days I'll get her. There's also a novella that I want to write to put with them, with the two stories that do exist. So when I get around to that, yeah, I will publish it.
Well, I'm glad you're as busy as you are, dude. And again, it's always a pleasure to check back in and
Yeah, lots of
have
fun.
this kind of conversation. And I won't be at Baltimore. I don't know if you're going to Baltimore.
Nope, I won't, because I don't have to be. So
Nah, that's why I'm not going either. Exactly, man. But no, always good to hang, dude. And
yeah,
you're a font of information, and we want the record straight, and that's why we go to Paul Kupperberg for the right answers. So as
happy
always,
to help.
you're no Bob Rozakis, but you're right behind him as far as being an answer man.
Yeah, no, Bob. There are a few people that I bow to. Mark, Wade, Bob Rozakis. Those are the trivia kings. I am merely a peasant laboring in the fields.
I know the feeling, my man. Great to talk to you, dude. Thanks
Nice
again
talk
for your
to you,
time.
John. Thanks.
Thanks everybody for watching. I'm going to record a couple episodes tomorrow. Mike Kunkel is going to come on from Hero and the Bear, and he had a wonderful run on Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam back in the day. We're going to talk about a new project of his. And God, who else am I talking to tomorrow? Now I'm blanking. Shame on me. Star Trek novelist David Mack, not to be confused with comic books David Mack, but Star Trek novelist David Mack, who also is doing an excellent job on this Star Trek Con drama podcast that is halfway done. It is and I'm a heavy critic when it comes to Star Trek. I love this series. I can't wait to talk to David about that and his Star Trek books and his involvement in the new Star Trek. All that coming up this week.
Say hi to David for me. He's an old pal. So
David, really?
Yeah. We used to. I don't know if it's still going on. There used to be a lunch in New York every Wednesday at the Malibu Diner on 23rd Street for science fiction writers, editors, comic book people, and David was one of the many people who was a regular participant. So
excellent. That's fantastic. I will try again with my brain. I will try to remember that.
I don't expect a lot, but I hope.
That's great, man. So that's coming up this week on Word Balloon. I hope you'll join us. Until next time, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.
Bye.